In this comparative study, I will explore the dynamics of time impacting the relationship of characters in a science fiction as examined in the progression of the screenplay discovered in the films Interstellar and 2001 A Space Odyssey. Beginning with Interstellar by Christopher Nolan, which was filmed in August 2013 and released in 2014, it's based in the future where Earth is gradually on a path towards becoming uninhabitable for humans and is on the verge of bringing humanity to extinction. However, NASA sends a team of explorers in search of a habitable planet with Earth like conditions which can sustain life. This is possible due to the scientific and technological advancements as shown in the film, such as the development of cryosleep. On the other hand, 2001 A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick, which was filmed in September 1967 and released in 1968, revolves around a group of scientists exploring the surface of the moon for a peculiar monolith that has been discovered there. The evolution of humans as a species is encapsulated with its birth and it acting as a catalyst for the future of mankind in the form of unprecedented space travel. Both films, through their narrative, depict space exploration, influenced by time as a key element in the progression of the protagonist's journey. However, what creates discrepancies between the two films are the socio-geographical factors influencing the motives of the characters and relatively their decisions. The robust cultural context of Interstellar being socio-geographical factors aids the progression of the narrative by not only establishing the change of geography, but also linking that change to the wavering emotions of the characters. The behavior of the characters, thus, is heavily influenced due to them being in the void of space. An instance of one of the scenes can be when Cooper receives his daughter's message and delves into a state of emotional turmoil. This emotional turmoil has been dealt with the use of pan-ins, close-ups, and fast-paced cuts corresponding to the character's emotional state. This segregation of Cooper with his family leads him to react in this way, knowing that they might not be able to meet ever again. However, this also becomes an objective for him to search for a habitable planet and subsequently communicate with the ones on Earth so that human as a species can survive. In 2001, A Space Odyssey, change of geography impacts the protagonist and other characters. However, this geographical change doesn't create an emotional turmoil. Since the motives of the protagonist are directed towards the discovery and revelation instead of a desperate last search for a habitable planet, the scenes remain tranquil throughout, which also aid in complementing space as their immediate surroundings. As the narrative progresses, one might realize that time plays a huge role with context to the gradually emerging climax of both films. For instance, in Interstellar, the dots get connected when Cooper is trying to communicate with his daughter in a five-dimensional tesseract. In the beginning, when there is a gravitational anomaly in one of the rooms in Cooper's house, Cooper and his daughter are bewildered by it. This question is finally answered in the fifth dimensional tesseract, where Cooper realizes that he was the being who was trying to communicate with Murphy. The representation of time also has been done in a subliminal manner at times. For instance, when Cooper was on Miller's planet, a ticking sound can be heard in the background. Whereas when we talk about 2001 A Space Odyssey, the concept of time has been given in a very direct fashion, facilitating an understanding about the effect of the concept of relativity on humans, which can be seen in the last scene where the protagonist meets his old self. In addition, in Interstellar, Murphy, Cooper's daughter, gets old and Cooper stays young due to time dilation when the group of scientists were on Miller's planet. On the other hand, in Space Odyssey, the evolution of humans, where the key element involved was time, and in the immediate end, one can see the protagonist is inflicted upon with old age. Furthermore, the antagonists in both films are quite distinct. For instance, in Interstellar, the antagonists are the laws of nature, inclusive of all the things which have a connection with time. The black hole is what had been used by Cooper to create a slingshot effect to aid Emily to travel to Edmund's planet when the fuel was almost over. However, since weight had to be shed off from the space station, Cooper had to detach himself, thus making a sacrifice. Little did he know that entering the black hole aided him to contact his daughter in the past and change the future. This also shows how paradoxical is the relationship of the natural laws with context to the plot. On the contrary, in 2001 A Space Odyssey, the robot commanding the space shuttle was the antagonist, called HAL 9000, which initially appeared to seem amicable, but later became a menace to the group of scientists aboard the space shuttle. This can be noticed when the protagonist's friend is killed by the robot as he launches him into space, subsequently killing all the crew members aboard. The disabling of HAL 9000 by the protagonist, followed by the scene where he becomes senile, and then a scene where a baby can be seen floating in space, symbolizes the spirit of humanity being indomitable. However, to build onto the triumphant victory, an extremely ominous atmosphere was created. The use of red lighting indicated danger. For instance, the camera focusing on the red dot emphasized on establishing a prospective threat, which could also be seen in the last scene where the protagonist was disabling the robot. On the contrary, in Interstellar, the presence of robots such as stars didn't create a threatening atmosphere. Instead, they facilitated throughout their journey across the void of space, gaining access to information, one of the instances being providing coordinates to Cooper in the Tesseract. The Space Odyssey was released in the year 1968, 10 years after NASA being founded in the United States, which is also reflected within the film with context to what the future might look like. To do this, the film emphasized on monkeys taking the initial steps to developing into an evolved species by picking up bones, using them as weapons, as well as learning how to hunt and protect their own territory. The following sequences portrayed how humans could live, research, and make great discoveries in space. This to an extent also aims to highlight NASA being a credible organization which can do wonders given its aims of exploring space. Interstellar, on the other hand, also alludes to NASA's achievements as 2001: A Space Odyssey does. Both the films, given the perspectives in which they have been represented, also reflect the current social and geographical factors influencing the films during the time when they were made. In Interstellar, the narrative has been represented in an ecocentric point of view, emphasizing the importance of saving our planet and how not preserving it led to the dire consequences with regards to the geography, as has been portrayed in the film, such as the occurrences of frequent dust storms. However, a technocentric point of view can be observed in 2001: A Space Odyssey, which highlights the optimistic future of the Earth and mankind. These points of view indicate the current circumstances when these films were made and how the audience's chord would have been struck given the relatability of the social and geographical factors portrayed in the film. In addition to the perspectives of the narrative, in both films the characterization has an immense influence in the progression of the narrative, which is what makes the films differ from each other. Whilst in Interstellar, Cooper, who has already lost his wife and has a young daughter and son to take care of, changes the way he perceives the exigency of the situation. Despite not knowing when he might return, he was determined to come back to his children, therefore leaving a watch behind with his daughter, another symbolic representation of time or relativity. Him leaving the watch behind depicted his major objective being protecting and returning to his children. The objective of the other crew members was to save mankind from extinction, which was also justified by Doyle not returning to the space shuttle when the big wave was about to hit them. In 2001: A Space Odyssey, the sole objective was discerning the truth about the object on the moon, said by the organization the astronauts were working for, NASA, which influenced the decision of all, hitherto the malfunctioning of HAL 9000, when the objective became survival for the protagonist. With the progression of time, the fundamental principle of the narrative of a science fiction remains the same, which is to showcase the impact of actual or imagined science upon society or individuals, due to the feeling of inquisitiveness in beating the odds and surviving the test of time throughout in the character graph. However, what has changed are the attitudes of individuals with the expansion of various theoretical possibilities in the field of sciences, which have in turn altered the foundational point of views of the narrative. On one hand, where the Space Odyssey looks forward to the utopian future, where everything seems to function as it is, Interstellar, in contrast, explores the state of present climate change crisis in the future, and the extent to which humans can acclimatize themselves for their survival. To comprehend the influence of the subtle change in attitudes on the narrative, thus makes the exploration of both films imperative. To conclude, 2001: A Space Odyssey and Interstellar, being quite like each other, inclusive of their cultural contexts as well as usage of time as a crucial concept within their screenplay, manifests disparity in the points of view in which the narrative unfolds. This disparity is conspicuous since both the films were based in different time periods, Interstellar in 2014 and Space Odyssey in 1968. Thus, the changes in attitudes as well as beliefs with time considering the future of our planet can be seen in the films respective to the years they were made in. Nevertheless, both the films follow the structure of science fiction films, which subsumes the introduction of otherworldly technology unattained by the present generation, as well as the unprecedented achievements due to its speculative nature.